Eddie Mabo?
It's me, Mrs.
You're here for the railways medical? Yes?
That's right.
We'll do the eye test first. Come this way, please.
Dear Mum and Dad, I'm keeping out of mischief.
The scene of the eye test is indicative of Eddie's resourcefulness and his ability to find a way around the obstacles he faces on his journey. This becomes important in the latter part of the film, as the Australian government sets out to undermine Eddie's case in the courts. The scene also demonstrates that Eddie is not a lone hero. He too relies on the support of others in order to succeed. The fact that Davy is able to replace him without the nurse noticing might also suggest an ignorance from the white Australian perspective, as it appears that they may see the indigenous people as one and the same.
Sometimes it's so hot, I can only manage cornflakes.
In this scene, we see Eddie exchange perturbed and frustrated glances with Davy as they see that the white workers are doing less intensive jobs and leaving them to do the hard work. The heat of the environment throughout this scene is particularly evident in the close-up shots of the clouds of dust rising from the tracks as they work. Having footage of the railways being built is also a way of indicating to the current Australian viewers how significant Australian infrastructure was built with the sweat of Indigenous men, something they can reflect upon the next time they take the train.
I spend most nights sleeping on top of the water tank. Only place you can get a bit of breeze out here. The weather is still hot and dry. I think it's going to be dry until the end of the world.
This painting of the Torres Strait Islands is also significant, as the painting we see hung later in the house is the real Eddie Mabo's actual painting. In scenes of contemplation, we often see Eddie look at this painting, ensuring that his next move has his heritage in mind. The cutaway as we move from a close-up of the painting to an establishing shot of the dry tin shacks creates a stark contrast between the tropical and outback environments that Eddie is having to transition between.
Then you got the Hornybrook site, marathon siding. Now you got blokes out there working double shifts. You know, and there's all kinds of garbage going on with the safety.
Mate, these blokes, they are hot to trot. Now, you know, most of the guys up there, they're 20% blacks, and they're all Islander blokes.
All right, well, that means that we need to have a serious recruitment drive among the blacks. What's your name, mate?
Eddie Mabo.
Eddie.
This point of view shot positions Eddie at the back of the room, an outsider to the white community in the union meeting. There is also a contrast between him as he stands up straight as compared to Davy Mabo, who is asleep. This might suggest one of the key qualities that sets Eddie apart and positions him to be the one who takes a stand politically, as he is tuned into social and political movements. The contrast between you blokes and our own, which you'll soon see, again emphasises the division between the two communities and how the white Australians are only likely to accept the Indigenous if they see it as being of benefit to them. However, this is revisited later in the film where we see the same union leader tell Eddie, "You've got a voice, haven't you?" suggesting that he has gained respect for Eddie as an equal who should not be required to do anybody any favours in order to take a stand.
Now, I'm assuming you're here because you want to know what the union can do for you, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Works two ways, Eddie. Now, we help you blokes by helping our own, and vice versa. You with me?
I think I got a fair idea what you're going on about.
Well, that's good to hear, Eddie.
Dear Dad, there's a lot more fellas coming from the islands now. I've been joining them up to the union, to make sure that we get a fair go.
In this shot, we see a contrast between the white workers sitting on the elevated platform of the ute, while the indigenous workers are on the ground eating, again showing the social inequality. Prior to this, we saw authentic footage of the Aboriginal workers, again reiterating that these events are authentic. You can normally distinguish this footage by the grainy appearance. However, the director does later give some protest scenes that are recreated the same aesthetics as the original footage to further blur the line between the real events and their recreation. Note that the footage of the rail workers used in this case is unlikely to be from the same period as the stage in the story, as it is in colour and the sideburns and clothing suggest that it was filmed in the 1970s. In the story of Eddie's life, we are only up to the 1950s.
Yeah, my shout. Well, I have 5.
You, out the back.
Oh, come on, mate.
So how many was it? 4.
Yeah, 4. Bit rough.
The contrast between the bartender and the worker, who was about to shout all the men, including Eddie, a drink, saying, "Come on, mate, bit rough," illustrates that not all white Australians were adverse to treating the Indigenous people as equals. There is, of course, more evidence of this throughout the film, such as Bonita's white neighbour helping her out with the kids. Notice how the bar scene began with a close-up of the beer being poured from the tap, and in this shot we see the beer centre frame. This is significant because despite the unjust conditions, the venue still makes money off the Indigenous as customers, since the Aborigines have no choice but to support the system that oppresses them.
I come back. Hey, girls! Come say g'day!
Again, slow motion is used in this scene because it is another pivotal moment in Eddie's life that will shape him as a person. It also suggests love at first sight, and the way Bonita acknowledges him and looks back at him where the other woman doesn't, suggests her attraction to Eddie and that she is drawn to him as he is to her. There is also a contrast between the dresses of the girls and Eddie's clothing. Bonita's dress almost looks like a child's party dress, white with flowers and a big bow. This might suggest her pure influence on the grubbier-looking Eddie.
Come on, what you doing?
I don't want to get up there again.
During this scene, we also see the use of a shaky handheld camera, as Eddie is again on unstable ground, this time because of his drinking.